Neymar 2014 World Cup quarterfinal. Brazil versus Colombia. Brazil was leading 2-1. Neymar was chasing the ball. A Colombian player named Zuniga came from behind and drove his knee directly into Neymar's back. The player fell down immediately. He couldn't get up. The doctors rushed onto the field. He was carried off on a stretcher, crying in pain. Doctors later discovered he had a fracture in his third vertebra. The most intense thing is that Neymar himself said after waking up, he felt he couldn't move his legs minutes after the strike. Doctors said if the knee had shifted just 2 centimeters to the left, he might be in a wheelchair today. Brazil lost 7-1 to Germany and exited the tournament with the worst defeat in their history. Bastion World Cup semi-final between France and Germany. French player Battiston was running with the ball past the German defense. German goalkeeper Schumacher charged out of the goal and collided with him very violently. His knee and elbow struck Battiston's face and body with full force. Batistuta fell to the ground and lost consciousness immediately. The injury was 2 broken ribs, damage to 2 vertebrae and 3 broken teeth. Shockingly, the referee didn't call a penalty. Even worse, Schumacher stood next to the injured player as if he didn't care. The clip went global and became one of the most controversial moments in football history. DLA Cruz, an ordinary match in Peru. Both teams were playing. Suddenly the weather changed. A lightning bolt struck the players directly on the pitch. 8 players fell to the ground at the same moment from the impact. One of the players, Jose DLA Cruz, passed away before reaching the hospital. The same thing happened in Brazil. A young 21-year-old player named Caio Henrique. He was playing in a local cup match. Lightning struck him and he collapsed to the ground instantly. He was taken to the hospital but did not survive the injury. Football is the only sport played in completely open-air stadiums. Every player stands in the middle of the field, open to rain and storms or worms, meaning each one of them is a direct target. Gibril Cissa. France was playing against China in a World Cup preparation match. Sissi was running after the ball. One of the defenders gave him a light touch. Suddenly, Sissi fell in a strange way and his leg snapped in half. The footage the world saw was shocking. His leg bent in a completely unnatural way. The players around him were stunned. Some couldn't continue after seeing the injury. The worst part is that this was his second broken leg injury in just 2 years. The first was in the English Premier League with Liverpool. He eventually returned to the pitch, but Sissi, who was considered one of the best strikers in Europe, never returned to his former level again. Better check the first minute of a Chelsea versus Reading match that truly only 16 seconds had passed. Jack went down to secure the ball on the ground. Reading players. Stephen Hunt brought his knee with full force into Chet's head. At first, the injury didn't look serious, but after a few minutes, Chet began to slowly lose consciousness. In the tunnel, doctors discovered a skull fracture, with a piece of bone driven directly toward his brain. Doctors later said that SEC was mere centimeters away from death and that a specialist hospital happened to be nearby. If the match had been at another stadium, he might not have survived. He underwent hours of surgery and had metal plates implanted in his cinemask. He returned to the pitch after 3 months and wore a helmet for the rest of his career. Strangely, he says he doesn't remember anything at all from the day of the injury. Eduardo da Silva. Eduardo was in the best period of his career, with Arsenal scoring and threatening in every match, in a match against Birmingham. Defender Martin Taylor made a late tackle. He struck Eduardo's foot while it was planted in the ground. The injury was a compound fracture of the fibula, with a complete dislocation of the ankle. Foot was hanging at an unnatural angle. English channels refused to replay the clip because it was too graphic for viewers. And the players on the pitch covered their faces. Doctors said Eduardo was close to losing his foot entirely. He returned after 10 months. But the player everyone called the future of Arsenal was never the same again. David Bust. A match between Coventry and Manchester United. Bust collided with 2 United players at the same moment. The impact broke 2 bones in his leg. The bone pierced directly through the skin. Blood covered part of the pitch. They stopped the match for 15 minutes to clean it up. Legendary Manchester United goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel, the man who had seen everything in European stadiums, turned his head and vomited on the ground due to the horror of the scene. Bust underwent 26 surgeries to save his foot from amputation, and at just 29 years old, his career ended forever. Keane and Holland, this isn't just an injury response. This is revenge that was planned for 4 full years. The story began in 1997. Roy Keane tore his cruciate ligament in a match against Leeds. Holland stood over him while he was on the ground in pain and accused him of faking it. Keane didn't forget 4 years later. In the 2001 Manchester derby, Keane got his chance. He went into Holland's knee with all of his weight, and after he was sent off, he stood over him and told him, take that in his autobiography. He wrote verbatim that he waited a long time and hit him with all his strength. With premeditation. The FA fined him for £1,500 and suspended him for 5 matches. Holland retired 2 years later at only 30 years of age.